It all started with a single question. One that should have had an easy answer. Where were you? Jessica stood in the doorway, still wearing that tight red dress, the one she used to save for our anniversaries. But this time, it wasn't for me. Her makeup was smudged just slightly. Not enough for the untrained eye to notice, but I noticed. The faintest smear of lipstick at the edge of her lips, the way her hair looked a little too lived in, like someone had run their hands through it. Her eyes flickered just for a second before she smiled. Oh, you know. Out with the girls. The girls. A group of women I could name, but not one I could verify. No photos, no messages, no had so much fun tonight, posts on social media. Just an alibi that had started appearing more and more frequently. I leaned against the kitchen counter, gripping my beer a little too tightly. Funny. I called Claire earlier. She said she hadn't seen you all week. That's when I saw it, the micro-expression. The tiniest crack in her mask. It was there and gone in a flash, replaced by an exaggerated eye roll. Oh my God, again with this? Since when did you become the FBI? Since my wife started coming home smelling like a stranger. I let the silence stretch. Let her squirm. She sighed dramatically, tossing her purse onto the couch. Look, maybe Claire wasn't there. But I was with the others. You want me to text them? Will that satisfy your sudden need to track my every move? She said it with such annoyance, as if I was the one being unreasonable. I took a sip of my beer, keeping my voice calm. Too calm. Sure. Text them. Her eyes met mine for a split second before she turned away, digging into her purse like she actually planned on doing it. But I knew she wouldn't. Because there were no texts to send. I wasn't stupid. I had already checked her phone. Earlier that evening, while she was in the shower, I'd picked it up. Locked, of course, but notifications still popped up. And there, bold as daylight, was a message from him. Mike. But not Mike, work. Just Mike. A message with only 2 words, miss you. I had stared at that screen, feeling something in my chest shift. A slow, suffocating pressure. Now, as she fumbled in her purse, pretending to look for her phone, I watched her. Really watched her. The way her jaw tensed. The way she refused to meet my eyes. Jessica had always been a good liar. But tonight? Tonight, she was slipping. I set my beer down, the glass making a dull thud against the counter. You're not gonna text anyone, are you? She froze. Just for a second. Then the act. The huff of indignation, the hand on her hip, the annoyed shake of her head. You know what? I'm done with this conversation. She turned to walk away, but I wasn't finished. Jessica. She stopped. I took a slow step forward. Who's Mike? And just like that, the temperature in the room dropped. She didn't turn around right away. Instead, she stood there, perfectly still, like a deer caught in headlights. I could feel the tension radiating off her. The kind of tension that only comes when someone has been caught. Then, she did something that almost made me laugh. She scoffed. A sharp exhale, followed by a dismissive shake of her head, like I had just asked her something ridiculous. Are you serious? She said, finally turning to face me. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Jessica sighed, crossing her arms. Mike is just a guy from work. I told you about him before. No, she hadn't. I would have remembered. Funny? I said, leaning against the counter. Because I checked your phone earlier. And Mike isn't saved as Mike work. He's just Mike. That got her. A flicker of panic in her eyes before she masked it with annoyance. Oh my God. You went through my phone? She let out a humorless laugh, shaking her head like she couldn't believe the audacity. Wow. Okay. So now you don't just interrogate me when I get home late, you also snoop through my phone? What's next? Gonna start following me. She wanted to flip this on me. Turn herself into the victim. But I wasn't playing along. You left it on the counter, I said, voice steady. I didn't even have to unlock it. The notification popped up on the screen. Her lips parted slightly just for a second like she was about to argue. Then she pivoted. Okay. Fine. Yes, Mike and I text. But it's nothing. He's just a friend. I let the words hang in the air between us. A friend who texts you, miss you, at night? She scoffed again, rolling her eyes. You're reading into things. I stepped closer. Am I? For the first time, she hesitated. That was all the confirmation I needed. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, the slow, creeping realization settling into my bones. I wasn't dealing with a misunderstanding. I wasn't reading into things. Jessica was lying. I exhaled through my nose, trying to stay calm. How long? She blinked. What? How long has this been going on? Jessica let out a sharp laugh, like I had just asked her the dumbest question in the world. There's nothing going on. Jesus, listen to yourself. You sound insane right now. She wasn't denying the messages. just trying to make me feel crazy for questioning them. Classic gaslighting. I clenched my jaw. You're lying to me. No, I'm not. Silence. We stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills. Her eyes flickered, searching my face, trying to figure out what I knew, how much I had seen. I took a step back, grabbing my phone from the counter. Jessica watched me carefully as I scrolled, then turned the screen toward her. Picture. One I had found on her other phone. The one she thought I didn't know about. The phone she kept hidden in the glove compartment of her car. It was a selfie. Jessica in this exact dress, sitting in the passenger seat of someone's car. And the reflection in the window, a man's hand, resting on her thigh, her face drained of color. Checkmate. For the first time since this whole conversation started, Jessica didn't have a comeback. No scoffing, no eye-rolling, no exaggerated how dare you attitude. Just silence. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She knew she was cornered. I let the moment stretch, watching her eyes dart between me and the phone, like she was calculating her next move. You want to try lying again? I asked, my voice eerily calm. She finally reacted, grabbing the phone out of my hand so fast that her nails scraped against my skin. She stared at the picture, her expression shifting rapidly. Shock, panic, strategy. Then she scoffed. Again. I was really getting sick of that sound. This? She said, waving the phone in the air like it was nothing. You think this is proof of something? Oh my God. She let out a short laugh, shaking her head. I cannot believe how paranoid you're being. Paranoid. There it was. She wasn't even going to try and explain the picture. She wasn't going to admit anything. She was going to gaslight me into doubting what I was seeing with my own eyes. I clenched my fists, breathing in deeply through my nose. Who is he? She let out another laugh, forced, sharp, desperate. No one. Jesus, can you stop with this interrogation? It's getting embarrassing. For who? I shot back. Me? Or you? Jessica's jaw tightened. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to control the situation. But she couldn't. Not this time. You know what? I'm done. She tossed my phone onto the couch like it disgusted her and grabbed her purse. I don't have to deal with this. I'm going to bed. She turned and started walking toward the hallway. But I wasn't letting her off that easy. I followed. You're just gonna walk away? She didn't stop. I'm not doing this with you. Not when you're acting crazy. I grabbed her wrist, not hard, not to hurt her, just to stop her. Just to make her look at me. And that's when she snapped. Jessica whirled around so fast I barely saw it coming. She shoved me, both hands against my chest, pushing me back a step. Get off of me, she shrieked. I held my hands up instantly. I'm not, you're being a psycho. Her voice was shrill now, full of rage. I don't have to stand here and listen to this bull. A sound from behind us cut her off. A small voice. Mommy? Both of us froze. I turned my head slowly and saw Emily standing at the end of the hallway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. She was wearing her pink pajama set, the one with the little yellow stars, and her stuffed bunny was tucked under her arm. Jessica's face changed immediately. The fury, the panic, the guilt, all of it vanished, replaced with a look of pure concern. Baby, she said, voice suddenly soft, like she hadn't just been screaming at me. Why are you up? Emily looked between us, her little eyebrows furrowed. Why are you fighting? Jessica glanced at me sharply, a silent warning in her eyes. I swallowed, my chest still tight with anger, but I forced my voice to be calm. It's okay, sweetheart. Go back to bed. Emily hesitated, her grip tightening around her bunny. Jessica bent down, plastering on the perfect motherly smile. Come on, Em, she said sweetly, holding out her hand. Let's get you tucked in. Okay? Emily nodded slowly, but as she walked toward her mother, she glanced back at me, her little face filled with uncertainty. Jessica led her down the hall to her bedroom, her voice dipping into that sickeningly sweet tone as she murmured reassurances. I stood there, staring at the empty hallway, my heart pounding. This wasn't just about me anymore. Jessica wasn't just lying to me. She was playing a role. And I had the sickening realization that she was really, really good at it. I stood in the middle of our living room, staring at the hallway where Jessica had just disappeared with Emily. My hands were still clenched, my pulse thundering in my ears. She was lying. That much was obvious. But the way she had switched, from furious and defensive to sweet and caring the second Emily walked in, that made my stomach churn. It wasn't just guilt. It wasn't regret. It was calculated. She had played the role of the perfect mother so effortlessly, like flipping a switch. And Emily, being 6, had bought it. For the first time, it hit me in a way it hadn't before. Jessica wasn't just cheating. She was a manipulator. A good one. And she thought I was stupid enough to fall for it. I needed air. I grabbed my keys and walked out the front door, slamming it harder than I meant to. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but I barely felt it. I just kept walking, my thoughts racing a mile a minute. I could hear her voice in my head, repeating the same excuses. You're paranoid. You sound insane. It's nothing. You're embarrassing yourself. Except I wasn't. I knew what I saw. I paced up and down the sidewalk, running my hands through my hair. If she had just admitted it, if she had come clean and apologized, maybe, just maybe, I could have processed this differently. But no. She wanted to make me feel like I was the problem. She wanted to gaslight me into silence. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, staring at the picture again. Jessica, sitting in a car, looking too comfortable next to a man I didn't know. A man whose hand was on her thigh. And then I remembered something. Jessica's car had been in the shop all week. So whose car was she sitting in? I stopped pacing. My breath came slow and measured as a new kind of anger settled in my chest. I had more questions now. And I wanted answers. I turned around and walked back inside. The house was quiet. Emily was probably already asleep. Jessica was nowhere in sight, but I knew exactly where she was. Our bedroom. Probably sitting on the bed, crafting her next lie. I walked down the hallway, my steps deliberate. When I reached the door, I didn't hesitate. I pushed it open. Jessica was sitting on the edge of the bed, hunched over her phone. But the second she saw me, she locked the screen and placed it face down on the nightstand. I smiled. She was so predictable. We're not done talking, I said, closing the door behind me. Jessica exhaled loudly, flopping back against the pillows. Oh my God, I am so over this. I ignored that. Whose car were you in? She hesitated. Barely a second. But I caught it. What? You heard me. I took a step closer. Your car's in the shop. So whose car were you in? She sat up straighter. A friend's. Which friend? Jesus, does it matter? She let out a frustrated groan. You are obsessing over nothing. It matters, I said, my voice low, controlled. Because your friend had his hand on your thigh. Jessica's face flashed with something. Panic, irritation, strategy. Then, just like before, she flipped it. She suddenly looked exhausted, like I was the one being ridiculous. Like she was so tired of dealing with my insecurities. You know what? Believe what you want, she said, standing up and walking toward the closet. If you're that desperate to paint me as the villain, go ahead. Nothing I say is going to change your mind. I watched her. She was so damn good at this, at making herself the victim. But I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. You want me to believe you? I said. Give me your phone. Jessica froze. For a split second, just one. She didn't move. Then, slowly, she turned to face me. The look in her eyes? Pure calculation. Excuse me? You heard me? I said, stepping closer. If you have nothing to hide, give me your phone. Jessica clutched her phone against her chest like it was her lifeline. That is such a violation of privacy, she snapped. I can't believe you would even ask me that. A sick feeling settled in my stomach. There it was. The final proof. Because here's the thing, Jessica had gone through my phone before. More than once. She'd snooped through my messages, my emails, my call logs, looking for anything she could twist into an argument. And she never felt guilty about it. But now, when it was her turn, suddenly it was a violation. I shook my head, my jaw clenching. You're unbelievable. She pointed at the door. Get out. I laughed. Actually laughed. This is my house, Jessica. She crossed her arms, her face twisting into an ugly sneer. Yeah? Then act like a man instead of some insecure little. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I'm gonna ask you one last time. Give me your phone. No, and that was all I needed to hear. I turned around and walked out, slamming the door behind me. Jessica thought she had control. She thought I was gonna let this go. She had no idea what was coming next. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen, running every conversation, every lie, every calculated move Jessica had made through my head like a reel I couldn't turn off. She was so good at this. Not just the lying, but the way she controlled the narrative. The way she made me the problem. And for years I had played right into it. This wasn't just about Mike. This was about power. Jessica had spent years chipping away at me, conditioning me to doubt myself, to second-guess what I saw, what I felt. I thought back to every time I had brought up something that felt off, how she had always turned it back on me. You're insecure. You're being dramatic. You're too sensitive. This wasn't new. I just hadn't seen it until now. I looked down at my hands. They were clenched into fists so tight my knuckles were white. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to unclench them. I wasn't going to let her win. Not this time. As the first rays of sunlight bled through the blinds, I heard movement down the hall. The soft creak of our bedroom door opening. Then footsteps. Jessica appeared in the doorway of the living room, already dressed. Tight black leggings, a loose sweater hanging off one shoulder, a messy bun that looked effortless but had probably taken her 20 minutes to perfect. She had her big sunglasses perched on top of her head, the ones she always wore when she was going out somewhere she didn't want to be recognized. She stopped when she saw me. "You're still up?" she asked, feigning concern. I just looked at her. She knew. She knew damn well I hadn't slept. Jessica sighed, shaking her head like I was exhausting her. "Look, I don't have time for another one of your little interrogations. I have brunch plans." "Brunch," I repeated flatly. "Yes, brunch," she snapped, adjusting the strap of her purse. "You know, that thing normal people do when they aren't too busy playing detective in their own house?" She was pushing me, trying to get me angry, trying to get me to react, to snap, to make me the bad guy. I wasn't playing that game. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, stretching out my legs. "Brunch with who?" She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "The girls." Again. "The same ones who weren't actually with you last night?" Her jaw tightened, but she recovered quickly. "You're still on that? Wow. Okay, well, since you're so obsessed with where I am every second of the day, why don't you come with me?" It was a trap. I knew it. She knew it. If I said yes, she'd find a way to make me miserable the whole time, either by openly flirting with the waiter, making snide remarks, or acting so sweet to me in front of people that I'd start questioning whether I was the crazy one. If I said no, she'd use it against me later. "You could have come, but you didn't. So why are you even complaining?" I smirked. "I'll pass." Jessica rolled her eyes, flipping her hair over one shoulder. "Didn't think so." She turned and started walking toward the door. I let her get all the way there before I spoke. "Hey, Jess." She stopped. I watched her grip the doorknob a little tighter before turning her head slightly toward me. "What?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "When you see Mike, tell him I said hi." Her whole body stiffened. For a split second, just one, I saw it, the raw panic in her eyes. Then, just like that, it was gone. She plastered on another smirk, shaking her head. "God, you are pathetic." And with that, she yanked the door open and walked out, slamming it behind her. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just listened. I heard her heels clicking down the front steps, the sound of her car door opening, then closing. The engine roared to life, but she didn't drive off right away. I could picture her sitting there, gripping the wheel, thinking, trying to figure out just how much I knew. I waited until I heard the tires finally roll over the pavement before I stood up, stretching my arms over my head. Then I walked down the hall, straight into her bedroom. Jessica wasn't the only one who knew how to play dirty. I went straight to her nightstand and picked up her spare house keys. Then I grabbed her laptop. And finally, her other phone. The one she thought I didn't know about. The one she kept hidden in the glove compartment of her car. Except she had gotten sloppy. Last night, after she went to bed, I had gone outside, found her spare key, unlocked the car, and taken everything. Jessica had no idea that the second she walked out that door this morning, she had already lost. I sat down on the edge of the bed, holding her phone in my hands. The one she thought was safely hidden away. The one she had been using to lie to me. It felt heavy. Not physically, but in a way that made my chest tighten. Because I already knew what I was going to find. I pressed the power button. The screen lit up, but of course, it was locked. 6 digits. Jessica wasn't stupid, she wouldn't use the same passcode as her main phone. But she wasn't as clever as she thought she was, either. I tried Emily's birthday first. Incorrect. Jessica was too selfish to use something sentimental like that. I tried her own birthday. Incorrect. I thought for a moment, staring at the black mirror of the screen, then typed in Mike's. Unlocked. A bitter laugh slipped out of my mouth before I could stop it. She was so predictable. I took a slow breath, steadying myself, then opened her messages. And there it was. Mike. Pinned to the top. I clicked. The chat exploded with messages. "Miss you already. Last night was amazing. Wish I could be waking up next to you instead. Did he suspect anything? I scrolled, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. Photos. Selfies. A full thread of her telling another man how much she couldn't stand me. He's so pathetic, honestly. The way he just sits there and takes it. I barely have to lie anymore. He wants to believe me so bad it's easy. I swear, sometimes I think he knows, but he's too much of a coward to do anything about it. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached. She was mocking me, humiliating me, and she thought I wouldn't do anything about it. I took a breath, forcing myself to focus. I wasn't going to react emotionally. That's what she wanted. She wanted me to explode so she could play the victim. Not this time. I clicked on the attachments. More pictures. Some of her dressed up, posing in a mirror, clearly taken in a hotel room. Some of them together. I saved everything. Then I went to her emails. Jessica had always been careful with her phone. She was always deleting things, always clearing her history. But this phone? She thought it was hidden. She had gotten lazy. Emails between her and Mike, talking about future plans. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning a way out. I don't want to keep sneaking around like this forever. He's going to be devastated when I leave. But whatever. He'll get over it. I just have to figure out how to do this without losing anything. Without losing anything. That's when I understood. Jessica didn't just want to leave me. She wanted to make sure she got everything. The house. The car. Emily. My stomach twisted. She was planning to take my daughter. I gripped the phone so hard I thought it might crack. This wasn't just about her anymore. Jessica wasn't just lying to me. She was setting me up. I set the phone down carefully, breathing through my nose. I had to think. I had to be smart. Jessica wanted me to react like an emotional wreck. She wanted me to fall apart so she could say, "See? He's unstable. He's crazy. I have to leave for Emily's sake." I wasn't going to give her that. I grabbed my own phone and started documenting everything. Screenshots of the messages, the emails, the photos. Then I opened a new email draft, attached everything, and sent it to myself. Evidence. Undeniable proof. I wasn't just going to confront Jessica. I was going to ruin her plans before she even had the chance to execute them. I sat there for a few more minutes, staring at the screen, feeling something inside me shift. For years I had been the perfect husband. The one who forgave. The one who looked the other way. The one who took it. But Jessica had made one crucial mistake. She thought I was weak. She thought I wouldn't fight back. She was dead wrong. I sat there for a long time, the glow of the phone screen burning into my eyes. The proof was all there, every disgusting message, every smug plan Jessica had made behind my back. She had spent months, maybe even years, plotting against me, treating me like some obstacle she had to get rid of instead of the man who had loved her, trusted her, given her everything. And the worst part? She enjoyed it. She wasn't just cheating. She was laughing about it. She was proud of how easily she could manipulate me, how effortlessly she could turn me into a fool. But the game was over. I picked up my phone again and made 3 calls. The first was to a lawyer. I wasn't filing for divorce just yet, but I needed to know my options. I needed to understand exactly what Jessica could try to pull when she realized the walls were closing in. The second was to a private investigator. I had enough proof already, but I wanted more. If Jessica was as calculated as I thought she was, then there were things she had been hiding even better than this secret phone. And I wanted every single one of them. The third call? I'll get to that later. By the time Jessica came home, I was already sitting in the kitchen, sipping my coffee like I hadn't just spent the morning destroying her plans. She walked in acting casual, like she hadn't spent the last few hours with the man she was betraying me for. She set her purse down on the counter, stretching her arms above her head. "God, brunch took forever," she groaned. "You would have hated it." I smiled. "Yeah?" She blinked, probably expecting me to make some passive-aggressive comment to push for another fight. But I wasn't playing that game anymore. Jessica shrugged, walking to the fridge. "Mom, Claire wouldn't shut up about her new boyfriend. Total bore. She was testing me, seeing if I would call her out. I didn't. Instead, I took another sip of my coffee. Glad you had fun." She turned, leaning against the fridge, studying me. Something about my calmness was throwing her off. "Where's Emily?" she asked. "She's with my mom," I said easily. Jessica frowned. "Why?" I met her eyes, still smiling. Just figured it'd be good for her to spend some time with Grandma. The truth? That was my third call. To my mother. I told her to pick Emily up, take her out for the day, keep her away from the house. Because what was coming next? Emily didn't need to hear it. Jessica stared at me for a second longer, then shrugged. Whatever. She grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, twisted off the cap, and took a sip. Are we done with last night's drama now? Or are you still gonna act all weird about it? I tilted my head. Last night's drama? She rolled her eyes. Jesus. I don't know what's been up with you lately, but it's exhausting. I don't need a jealous husband on top of everything else I have to deal with. I almost laughed. She still thought she had control. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. You're right, I said. Jessica blinked. Wait, what? You're right, I repeated. I have been acting weird, but that's because I figured something out. Her lips parted slightly. Figured what out? I reached into my pocket and pulled out her other phone. The second she saw it, her entire face changed. All the fake confidence, the smug, bored attitude, gone. Jessica went completely still, like an animal that just realized it had walked straight into a trap. You left this in the car, I said, placing it on the table between us. Well, not really. You hid it, but you got sloppy. Jessica didn't move, didn't blink. I tapped the phone once with my finger. I know, Jess. A flicker of something desperate flashed in her eyes. Then, just like always, she pivoted. She scoffed, crossing her arms. Are you seriously going through my stuff now? Wow. And you call me a liar? I smiled again. It's unlocked. Her breath hitched, just for a second. But I caught it. She knew exactly what that meant. I saw everything. The messages, the emails, the plans. She swallowed. I picked up the phone and started reading. Out loud. Last night was amazing. Wish I could be waking up next to you instead. Did he suspect anything? Jessica's whole body stiffened. I kept going. I just have to figure out how to do this without losing anything. I looked at her then. Directly. You weren't just screwing around, I said slowly. You were trying to get everything before you left me. Jessica's lips pressed together so tightly they turned white. She was caught. Completely. And she knew it. But Jessica wasn't the type to go down without a fight. She lunged for the phone. I pulled it back just in time. Her eyes flashed with pure panic. Give me my phone. No, her breathing hitched. I had never seen Jessica look truly scared before. Until now. Because she knew. She lost. Jessica stood there frozen. Her hands were balled into fists, her breathing uneven. She wasn't used to this, to being cornered. She was always the one in control, the one who could twist any situation to her advantage. But not this time. I leaned back in my chair, turning her phone slowly in my hands. You know, I read through a lot of your messages, Jess. I said, my voice calm. I have to say, you really don't think much of me, do you? She flinched, just slightly, before masking it with another scoff. Oh my God. Are we really doing this? She crossed her arms, her voice sharper now. You violated my privacy. You went through my personal stuff. I laughed. Loudly, sharply, because of course she was trying to flip this on me. Privacy, I repeated, shaking my head. Jessica, you weren't just cheating. You were planning to rip my life apart behind my back. You were trying to take everything from me. My home, my stability, even my daughter. I leaned forward, my expression darkening. And you thought I wouldn't find out. Her lips parted, her face pale. For the first time, I saw fear. Not fear of getting caught, fear of losing. You don't understand, she said quickly, her voice unsteady. It's not what you think. Oh, it's exactly what I think. I cut her off, standing up. I read the emails, Jessica. I saw the plans. She stumbled over her words. That was just, what? A joke? I snapped. Because I wasn't laughing when I read the part about how you wanted to make sure you didn't lose anything when you left me. Jessica blanched. She had nothing. No defense. So she did what she always did. She attacked. You know what? She hissed, straightening her spine. Yeah, I was planning to leave you. Because you're a weak, pathetic excuse for a man. I clenched my jaw. But I didn't look away. You just sit there, letting life happen to you. You're boring. You're not exciting. You're not ambitious. You're just a sad little man who got lucky marrying someone like me. She laughed, cruel and sharp. And what? You thought you could stop me? That you could trap me here by snooping through my phone? I let her rant. Let her explode. Because I knew what was coming next. She needed me to break. To scream back. to lose control so she could spin it against me. But I just smiled. And that terrified her. "What are you smirking at?" she snapped. I tilted my head. "You really think I didn't prepare for this?" Jessica hesitated. I reached for my phone and tapped the screen. A recording app was still running. Her whole face dropped. "I've been recording since the moment you walked in," I said simply. "Every insult. Every confession. Every nasty little thing you just said." I lifted the phone. "All on record." Jessica took a step back. You can't do that," I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I can." And I did. Her breathing was ragged now, her hands shaking. And then I went for the kill. "You know who else has a copy of this recording?" I asked casually, scrolling through my phone. "My lawyer." Jessica physically swayed. "I had one. And she knew it. By the way," I added, "you should probably start thinking about where you're going to stay tonight. Because you're not sleeping here." Jessica's face twisted into something ugly. "You can't kick me out of my own house." I shrugged. "Actually, I can." And I did. I tossed a folder onto the table. "That's a restraining order. Effective immediately." Jessica's mouth opened, then closed. "I already filed it this morning," I said. "So by law, you have to leave." I gestured toward the door. "Now." Her whole body was trembling now, her face twisted with rage. "You think you're so smart," she seethed. "You think you've won?" I just smiled. "Oh, I know I did." Jessica let out a choked scream of frustration, grabbing her purse. She stomped toward the door, but then she hesitated. She turned back, her eyes cold. "You'll regret this," she spat. I didn't even flinch. "No," I said quietly. "I regret ever marrying you." And then I watched as she stormed out of my house, out of my life, out of everything. The moment the door slammed shut, a silence filled the house that I had never felt before. Not the uncomfortable silence of a dead relationship, not the suffocating tension of a looming fight. This was different. Lighter. Jessica was gone. For the first time in years, the weight of her manipulation, her lies, her control was no longer pressing down on me. I exhaled, slow and deep, and sat back down at the kitchen table. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just free. I stared at the folder in front of me. The official paperwork that I had prepared this morning, knowing how this would end. Jessica had underestimated me. She thought I was too weak to fight back, too pathetic to see through her. She had been so sure that she would be the one to walk away on her terms. But now, she had nothing. No home, no control, no power. I picked up my phone, scrolling through my emails until I found the forwarded documents from my lawyer. Screenshots, proof, evidence, everything I needed to destroy her. And the best part? I wasn't even done yet. I pressed the call button, putting the phone to my ear. A voice picked up on the other end. "Did it go down?" I smiled. "Oh yeah." The private investigator chuckled. "Told you she'd crack. You got everything?" "More than enough," I said, standing up and stretching. "She made it easy." "Good. I'll send over the rest of the info I found later today." I smirked. "Looking forward to it." We ended the call and I set my phone down. Jessica thought she had secrets? She thought I was the one who didn't know what was going on? She had no idea that I had been one step ahead of her this whole time. Because what she didn't know, what she could have never expected, was that Mike wasn't the only one. She had other affairs. Other men. And I had proof of all of them. My private investigator had dug through everything: bank statements, hotel receipts, social media DMs. Jessica had been sloppy. So damn confident that she wouldn't get caught that she left a trail. And now? Now I was burning it all down. I picked up my laptop and opened a new email. Subject: divorce settlement proposal. I attached every piece of evidence. The messages, the photos, the transactions. Then at the bottom I added one final line: "I suggest you sign this quickly. If not, I have no problem taking this to court and making sure you leave with nothing. Your choice." I hit send. Then I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Jessica had spent years trying to turn me into a fool. She had tried to break me, humiliate me, control me. But in the end, I had beaten her at her own game. And she never even saw it coming. The house was quiet. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I wasn't bracing for an argument, for another manipulation, for the constant emotional warfare Jessica had waged against me for so long. She was gone, and I had made sure she had nothing left to come back to. I sat there, staring at my laptop screen, watching as the email I had just sent disappeared into the digital abyss, carrying with it the end of my marriage. The end of her games. the end of everything she thought she had control over. I wasn't the pathetic, weak husband she had laughed about in her messages. I was the man who had taken everything back. I stood up, stretching, the tension finally leaving my shoulders. My phone buzzed on the table. Jessica. I smirked. Of course. I let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. Then she texted. Are you serious? You're actually doing this? You have no idea what you're starting, you idiot. I read them all, sipping my coffee, feeling nothing but satisfaction. She still didn't get it. She still thought she had power. She had no idea that I had already spoken to her job. That's right. One of the other little discoveries I made while going through her phone? She had been using company funds for her affairs. Luxury hotel bookings, dinners, travel expenses. And my investigator? He had everything. I had already forwarded the proof to her boss. By now, Jessica was either getting called into a meeting or finding out that her access had been revoked. She wasn't just losing her marriage. She was losing her job, her career, her entire life. My phone rang again. This time, it wasn't her number. It was Mike's. I laughed. Actually laughed. Was she making him call me? Was this her last pathetic attempt at trying to intimidate me? I let it ring, then sent a single text back. She's all yours now. Enjoy the mess. Then I blocked him. I walked to the window, looking outside. The world felt different, lighter. And then I heard the front door open. Little footsteps. Daddy. I turned just in time to see Emily running toward me, her stuffed bunny tucked under her arm, her eyes bright. I crouched down and scooped her up, holding her tight, inhaling the soft, familiar scent of her shampoo. Hey, sweetheart, I murmured. She pulled back, frowning. Mommy's not here? I swallowed, choosing my words carefully. No, baby. Mommy had to go somewhere. She studied me for a second, then tilted her head. Are you sad? I smiled. Really smiled. No, sweetheart, I said softly. I'm not sad at all. She grinned, wrapping her arms around my neck again. Good. I closed my eyes, holding her close. Jessica had tried to take everything from me. She had tried to turn me into a fool, a slave husband who would let her walk all over him while she planned her escape. But I had become something else. Stronger. Smarter. Free. And in the end, I had thrown her out like trash. With my daughter in my arms. And not a single regret.